with the clever
I like.
graphics
Could you turn on? No.
as the
Could you turn
market
on the microphone?
turns
I love it.
from the soap opera? Of course,
I
most
thought
of
of that
you-
first
most
off,
of
but
you
you
are
kind
way
of have to
too
be old
young.
school.
Yeah, most of you are too young to know what that means.
What?
As the market turns, that overcomes.
Oh, I know where that came from.
What was that?
I know where that came from.
So do I, us old folks.
Yeah, even Maddie didn't even know what I was talking about.
No.
Gotta be 40 plus.
It was
to know
Mary.
that one.
It was Mary that showed.
My mother always watched Days of Our Lives.
Guiding light.
Luke and Laura.
Okay, so around the room, starting with Kiani, the question is, you have to say your name, of course. We won't play AA today. That was so much fun. We have to do that again. Just give us your name and what are your either your unit or your.
The realistic team goal for the year was 9. And the goal that I set before I really calculated in the fact that, November is the last month that we do it, and I didn't start till February, it was 13.
But you're thinking more 9.
I'm still shooting for 13.
Sure, of course. So how far along are you year-to-date closings of the 9?
Closings, I'm at 3.
Okay.
I've got 3 in the pipeline.
3 closing and 3 in the pipeline. That is excellent. Becky, your name?
Becky McBain, and it was 7. I kept kind of low.
7 units?
7 units, yeah. So I'm getting pretty close to that, and so I would probably increase it to 10.
7? I think you could do that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, Kathy Fernandez, Jack White Real Estate. Our team goal was gross sales of 18 million. We are at the moment hovering at a little over 7 million with maybe 3 million in the pipeline. So we probably won't hit 18 million. Would have been nice. Carl.
So I've had 1 closing so far, and I'm Carl Wilfong, Jack White Real Estate, Salesforce. Going for, I hope 4 for this year.
Okay.
Let's get 3 more in there before September comes.
Okay, November.
November.
Okay. Next.
My name is Abraham. My goal was to do at least 6, but my goal seems to be run away from me pretty fast.
Don't be discouraged. Do you have any in the pipeline?
I have 1.
And how many closings have you had, Abraham?
None.
Okay. It's not too late. What are you going to, what one thing should you do differently to pick up the pace in your view?
I don't know. I don't know at this point. I think it's just being patient and wait for the right time.
I like the word patient and being consistent. Whatever you're doing, where did the 1 closing come from?
I have no closing.
Oh, you had, I thought you had 1.
1 in the pipeline.
Oh, 1 in the pipeline? Where did that one come from?
Just a customer that I had that wanted to buy a fourplex. Unfortunately, he lost his job, and now he's trying to buy a condo.
Okay. Where did that customer come from?
It's just an old friend.
A friend? Okay, all right. You probably have a lot of friends.
I do have a lot of
At
friends.
least you did before you got into real estate, right?
Yeah. Well, I the thing is, I didn't want to base my business on my friends and family.
Why?
Because I just didn't thought that was a good way to start.
So you'd rather have a stranger realtor help your friends and family?
Not necessarily. I just wanted to build some credibility for myself first before.
You wanted to feel you had more to offer
Mm-hmm.
before you inflicted what you did or did not know on your friends and family?
Exactly.
That's fair. I get it. But even if you don't have all the answers, there's a lot of people here that could help you with answers. Don't let your friends and family use anybody else, because that would be a terrible disservice to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
And my name's Mary Ann Hunt.
She's wearing her name badge, by the way.
Uh,
Who's not wearing their name badge? Would you raise your hand super high? Why? Did you lose them, Billy and Carl?
That is a distinct, I'm gonna blame it on the fact it just moved, and so. all
Yeah,
of my
but we
stuff
heard
is
that
just
story 2
disarray.
weeks ago.
I'm still,
Still moving.
I haven't unpacked everything.
Still in boxes.
Maybe I threw it away in Panama. I don't know. I don't know where it is.
Billy?
Well, Carl is just moving.
You're helping.
I believe it's in the cleaners. With my suit. I think it is.
I've actually done that.
These things are expensive, by the way.
$25.
What much are they?
$25.
$25 for crying out
Look
loud.
in your dryer, that's what Mary said, look in your dryer, it's probably stuck to the.
That's fine.
I'm sorry, let's go back to your production.
And I have one closing, and I have a closing scheduled today. And I have one listing, and I remember you asked us one time, which would you prefer, listings or buyer or seller?
Mhm.
And now that I have seller, I don't know. That's something else. That's another conversation. Today.
The best way to manage, are they demanding?
Yes,
And how often do they call you?
not often. I can't show it on Sunday. I can't show it except for 3 hours on Saturday, and nobody can be in the house after 4 o'clock on the weekday. And the cat, you must be gentle with the cat.
Oh my. And others don't pick up?
Cat owns the
The
house.
cat runs away. You
Are
don't-
these
you'll
friends
never
of
see
yours?
the cat. And it's a gorgeous house. I can't get anybody in it.
Are they serious sellers?
Somewhat, but they're not forced out yet.
Are you spending any money on this marketing?
Not other than updating the flyers. I have convinced them to lower the price. It's about as low as I think we can go. It's updating, but I'm not gonna go there. Like a home
Where did
warranty,
that listing come from?
a friend I've known for a long time. And that's why it's very hard. It's very hard.
So they're kind of in charge, aren't they?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How much longer do you have to endure that? When does the listing expire?
Expires, she wanted it done by October 31st because it's on septic, and she feels that the septic couldn't be appropriately analyzed in the winter time. So she wants it hopefully sold by then.
Okay, that would be tough. All right, Robin, do you know what the question is?
How many closings?
No, the question is, you gotta get your name and your goal.
My goal,
Your,
I'm Robin Hayes, and I'm a realtor, and my name tag is in the car.
Okay.
that's better than being in the dryer or somewhere in a box.
And my goal, I think, was 4 this year, and I've had 2 closings. I do have one in the pipeline that's FBE because it's a short sale. It's fairly going.
Okay. So what's the reason that every now and then I spring this on you and ask you what your goals are? What's the reason? Who knows?
Remind us.
Keep in
Keep
motivation.
in mind. That's what we do. Especially if you rely on this to feed your family or yourself, you gotta keep in mind what's going on. Okay, let's look at points really quick.
I just put my points in.
The winning team so far is my team, thank you very much. And I'm the high point getter with 15 points in closings. I've worn my name tag, people, 15 times. That got me 15 points. That helps a lot. And I've handed out 14 business cards. My second highest point getter on my team is Carl. Thank you, Carl. 25 prospect calls, that's outstanding. 5 points showing clients, 3 points for open houses, and Carl has 17 points for business cards. Thank you, Carl. You're doing a great job.
3 points for each time you do an open house?
No, 3 open houses.
Okay.
Yeah, and these are cumulative points, by the way. Yeah, you get 1 point for everything other than a closing, and a closing is 5 points. The team 2 leader is Billy Worthy, and the high point bidder is Billy.
Aaron.
Billy has 20 prospect calls, 35 business cards he's handed out, 5 classes he's attended in sales meetings, and he's got 5 points for name tags, name badge, before he lost it.
It's not far. I'm hot on the trail.
And then our third place team is Kelly's team. The high point bidder is going to be Miss Amanda with a closing, 5 points for prospect calling, and 10 business cards, and attending class, and attending tour. Robin, you're getting your 2 points there too, I hope. Okay, it's the baby steps that make a difference, Abraham. You gotta do all the little baby steps that make a difference. And we don't want to be secret agents. That's why you wear your name badge, so people know who you are. Right? Okay,
Yep.
so today's topic. This kind of came up last week, something I think Abraham maybe said. And John said the same thing. As the market turns, we know we're going into a softening market. If you don't believe me, read the newspapers.
Yes.
Layoffs, gloom and doom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So after 40 years of being in the real estate business, I have seen gloom and doom about every 5 years. And you're going to be on a roll, and you're going to just do exceptionally well 1 year, and then 1 year you can still do all the things that you did before correctly, and suddenly your income is half what it was before. There's a lesson there. Don't spend all your commission income, save money, be cautious. Well, we are in a declining market, and the question was, one of the problems that John said he was having was converting people into becoming buyers in spite of our market. And so what we did is Amanda and Robin interviewed John Carmen and Gina, and these are some of the points that they came up with from John and Gina. And I've added a few of my own thoughts to it. So as the market turns out to overcome buyer objections, okay, number 1, the buyer says, why should I buy now? If you've heard that question, raise your hand real high. If you've heard that question, okay.
Well, I haven't heard the question. I more hear the statement, I don't want to buy now because
Yes.
these guys are experts.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Somebody said something the other day, the person didn't want to buy now because real estate prices were softening. Wouldn't that be a great time to buy? Right, okay. All right, we'll talk about that in a minute. So here's some answers that I came up with. First of all, interest rates are still below 4%. Robin's research said in the interview she did that was that a 3.18% interest rate? Did you mean it that way?
I think it's 8-1.
Okay, it's not written here, but an interest rate of 3.8, no, it's not right either, Robin. Probably 3.2 would be one of the lowest interest rates that we've seen in many years. And so they're still below 4, aren't they? So that would be a really good reason to buy.
John Carmen said it's the lowest it's ever been.
Lowest
It
is
is
ever.
the lowest it's ever been.
Isn't that amazing? So you take, just for fun, you take a 4% interest rate, you amortize that over 30 years on a $300,000 home. That creates a principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payment of $2,041.37. These are the kind of things you can show buyers. So a 3.5 interest rate amortized over 30 years and $300,000 is a PIT of 1957.80, or a difference of $83.57. So you can say to a buyer, to say half a point of an interest rate can mean another $83 a month in a mortgage payment, which diminishes your buying power. Does that make sense, people? John says that as the market recovers, interest rates will likely climb. That's historical. You can tell buyers that. It's a perfect time to buy because the interest rates are down. D, if you're paying, I love this analogy, if you're paying rent of $2,000 a month, and you've been paying rent for 5 years, your total rent paid is $120,000. How many times I have actually sat down with a buyer who is on the fence, and I said, tell me what your rent payment is. Oh, I pay $1,800 a month, but I just don't want to buy it, but I pay $1,800 a month. You didn't realize you could own the house for $1,800 a month? But on this analogy, this person has paid $120,000 in rent in just 5 years. That is just, it gives me goosebumps. That's just terrible.
No tax benefit, no.
Nothing.
No equity, no nothing.
Nothing. So I say to that buyer, you've been making your landlord's mortgage payment for him. You could have been investing in your own home. So additionally, depending upon what tax bracket you're in, a $2,000 a month mortgage payment includes typically an interest payment of about $1,000 a month. This is where Robin was going. So $2,000 a month mortgage payment, $1,000 of that could be more or less your interest payment. And so far, interest on your mortgage loan is tax deductible. So most taxpayers can enjoy an additional $12,000 a year in interest rate write-offs on their income taxes. Don't hesitate to show that. Talk to your buyers about that. You don't know their tax bracket, and that tax bracket will affect exactly what that number is.
Well, people sometimes also say, because they're in the military, this is what I get. The reason why they don't like to have to pay $1,800 a month, however, they're not sure if they want to remain here for any more than 2 or 3 years. At the same time, I've shown these kind of numbers. They'll say, well, if you think about it, now this is even better. 5 years, you're spending $120,000.
And guess what else if
So-
you're a VA buyer?
You don't need a down payment.
Zero down.
Right.
So not
Zero
only do you
PMI.
have the benefit of the tax write-offs and the equity buildup, but you didn't have to put any money down. And if you made the seller a really, really, really good offer, what did that seller do, Robin? Your closing costs. So a buyer can maybe buy a home for maybe the cost of his home inspections and have equity build up if he's a VA buyer. If he's an FHA buyer, what's his down payment? Anybody? 3.5. 3.5 of 300,000 is about $9,000. So an FHA buyer, well, maybe 10 or 11. So an FHA buyer for $11,000 can enjoy equity buildup and a tax write-off. But when you start talking to your buyer prospects about these issues, be sure and make the comment, but we are not lawyers or tax accountants, therefore please seek advice from your other professionals. Be really careful not to pretend to be the expert. That'll get you in trouble later. Gina suggests that you ask buyers their intent for buying. Is it for family and quality of life? In other words, okay, so the market is softening and you're afraid that when you want to sell in a few years, you're going to owe more than the home is worth.
Yeah.
But if that's the only reason you're buying a property, maybe that's a legitimate concern. But if you're buying a home for your family and quality of life, you'll probably be there at least 10 years, and you won't have a landlord trying to sell the house out from under you, you would buy. And then you own something again. So does it really matter if real estate prices may remain soft for the next 5 years? Not really, because real estate is always cyclical. Even prices and value come down, they will always go back up. H, buyers who remain in their home 7 to 10 years will almost always see equity buildup, which makes the home purchase, regardless of the state of the market, worthwhile. But, big deal, we never promise equity buildup, do we? Every day a buyer will say, now Kathy, I'm going to pay $300,000 for this home today, so when I'm ready to sell in 5 years, can I sell it for $325,000? You know what, Mr. Buyer? I have no idea. I have no idea. If the market remains good, maybe so. If the market takes a downturn, here's what I say. If the market takes a downturn and you can't sell it for what you owe on it, guess what, Mr. Buyer? What's the answer, Robin? Anybody? Don't sell. Don't
Lease it.
sell.
Rent
Keep
it
the
out.
house. Just hang on. Yeah, and then Gina reminded us that every election year there is market turmoil. This soon shall pass. Okay, and I've done this before. A compelling example of the value of home ownership. Hypothetically, in 2006, a buyer paid $250,000 for their home. Today, the home will sell for $300,000. Their loan balance is $220,000. The difference between today's sales price and their loan balance is $80,000. You take $80,000 divided by 120 months, which is the 10 years they've lived there. That means that every month they were earning $667 on that house. Owning the house and making the mortgage payment was still earning them $666. And you multiply that times 12 months, and so every year they lived there, they were making $7,900 a year. Additionally, on the 2,000 a month payment, 1,000 a month was an interest write-off. So is it possible that the seller actually paid only $333 per month to live in their home, depending, of course, on their tax bracket? Does that make sense, guys? I have sat down with sellers, and maybe they got a $20,000 equity, and gee, I wish we had a bigger equity. Yeah, but let's do the math. Let's see what it really costs you to live in this house. You got a tax write-off. You have equity now. The equity reduces the payment that you have to make. And people are just amazed when you show them that. And for a buyer, that's a good example to show a buyer. And many times when I'm sitting down with sellers, like I said, I show them, you've done very well. Your net payment each month is $300 a month. It's really amazing. So any comments, concerns, questions about that? Any other things you can think of that would help overcome some buyer objection?
Imagine if that was typed out in like a accurate but simplistic terms so that you could hand them a lemonade sheet and say, this is this. But I don't know if that becomes too official and binding for you.
Well, if
Just send this to our clients or so, what you're saying?
he was
Something similar to
suggesting
the-
doing a table and handing a table out, but I think, Carl, you're probably right. That probably smacks of them
But
relying on it.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I do that example, I'm sitting in their kitchen and I have a yellow legal pad and I'm just, scratching. I never leave that with them or have them sign anything. It's just an example of, you really did much better than you think you did on this investment.
Most states would probably do that for us.
I would think. Have any of these examples been something you think you can work with? Are there any more examples that you have that you can share?
Right, at one time, I had a family member that, did this 000 down and then ended up, having to change of lifestyle and, things happen. And he wanted to sell and we're like, well, there's not equity there. So he did the next best thing, in my opinion. He leased it out. And then we got him into a small condo for him and his children, and then that way it was taken care of. So, and now they're getting ready to eventually get it together and he is wanting to list the house many years later. But, I think he did pretty well for himself. And so that's a good example that I use with a lot of different people.
So Tiani, in that example that she just gave us, what is the one issue that the seller may have overlooked? And most realtors forget to mention it. The illustration was the VA seller wasn't able to sell his home,
Because it didn't have
so
equity.
he leased it out
Okay.
for 5 years. What is the one thing that we as professionals should say to our clients?
You run the risk of having it vacant.
That, but where I'm going with this is there's going to be capital gains to pay on that property, potentially capital gains to pay on the property. Now, that's a formula that I'm not even close to being qualified to know anything about.
Sure.
But Sharon at Alaska Title is a 1031 exchange specialist. And if anybody that's ever
No.
rented anything out, I always suggest they talk with her.
And once
Oh, you do a
once they
1031
haven't
exchange?
lived in it for 2 years, it qualifies as an investment property and could be used for a 1031.
So will you repeat that? I didn't hear
Huh?
the first part. I didn't hear your first part.
Once it hasn't been lived in as your primary residence for 2 years, then it qualifies by definition as a investment property and could be used in a 1031 exchange.
Okay, so
So, because 1031s are only for investment properties. So you can buy a property for through a 1031, but you can't immediately use it as your residence or a second home for personal use for 2 years. And same with the sale. You can't be your personal residence going over to investment. You have to have it vacant, or investment use.
Doesn't matter how much you pay for.
No, this is, it matters to a certain extent of how beneficial is a 1031 to your client, in the sense of if they bought it way low and have had it for 10 plus years, they want, they may want to utilize those tax benefits to avoid your stepped up cost basis and on top of your capital gains, because it's not just capital gains that you're worried about, you're also worried about depreciation and values.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
Becky's question, Becky said that these people move back in, but at the very least, did they report the real income on their taxes?
You know, that's the part that
And that really isn't your business, but,
Right.
but hopefully they did, because that's income.
Right.
But if they move back in.
I'm sure they did.
That nullifies.
That nullifies the investment property
Right,
aspect.
exactly. So, but you're right, though, now this person is dealing with depreciation
Yep.
and wear and tear
Yep.
because he had these other people, but, you know, you can only tell people so much.
Right.
And
You can just strongly encourage to
That's
look
right.
into these other resources that may be available to them, but they have to be willing to do their own homework.
right. And that's pretty much what has been happening. But yes, there is great opportunity, in my opinion, for anybody to purchase, because there's always a creative way to, with real estate, to strategize. Or for that matter too, just reminding the clients to keep it nice and upkept. So if you have dogs, you better think about that. If you're 5 years down the road, although you're just buying this property, but regardless, chances are people are going to move. They think, oh, I'm going to grow old in this house. Well, you might be saying that, but 5 years down the road, you might be rethinking this.
And now we did touch on this a little bit, but one thing that's circulating out there among the uneducated masses is, but real estate prices, I want to buy, but real estate prices are so high right now, I want to wait till the prices come down. There's that, but there's also, prices are high, but
I think people misperception of what prices are, expectations is what the problem is. You see, if you make $60,000 a year and want to live on a $500,000 home, then of course the house is too expensive. I mean, come on, people, get real, And that's what I think the problem is, people expect too much and they don't realize the real cost of living on an expensive house.
The real cost of ownership.
Yeah.
Well, they moved from places like Texas, which is very common, and you can get cream of the crop for what you get here. You get a little box.
But they also
So-
get higher wages here.
Right, and you tell that to them, but they still have this grandiose. So you sort of have to talk them into reality and show them the MLS for here's what you can get in Anchorage or Eagle River or Wasilla. So maybe you want to move to the valley because you get more money for your value.
Yeah, but then you have to also take into consideration the cost of the time. It will
Yep.
cost you for commuting, the wear and tear on your vehicle,
Right.
and whether or not it's worth it to you to have a slightly larger lot or a slightly larger house.
Right.
It just depends. I mean, 4 hours of my time a day is not worth it.
That wouldn't be.
That's a part-time job.
No, not even.
So Billy, you commented that buyers want to wait until the prices come down.
Right.
But a good response is that's a good plan. But as the prices go down, the interest rates are going to go up and you'll be at the same benchmark you are right now. Nothing gets any better.
I mean, even worse, because sure the price is a little lower, but the interest rate coming up,
Yeah,
it
it's
shows right there,
Yeah.
your payment's higher.
So I don't think there are 20 good reasons we could put on the table for a buyer to make a buying decision today. I don't think there's 20, but I think there's at least 6. 6 very sound reasons why people should make a buying decision today. And we can't put a gun to people's heads, or we're not supposed to. Anyway. But at least this will give you some ammunition, I think, to work with. And I think the illustration about the net mortgage payment at the end of 5 years or 10 years I think that's a very exciting illustration you can give people, and it's really made a difference. But again, be careful, because we're not tax accountants, we're not lawyers, and we would never want to promise equity builder, ever.
So Kathy, so what about the people who bring up the 80s, the crash of the 80s? Because people still bring it up.
Of course
And
they
it
do.
was
And 2000.
ugly, and it was bad. It was,
Okay, the
you know,
the answer to that, and I've heard that many, many times, is, okay, so when we have another 80s,